Well, good morning and welcome back to our another week of shop class. A couple of house cleaning items here, I guess. First of all, thanks for Friday for submitting some ideas. A lot of really good ideas. A couple of the most common were one would be some woodworking type projects, and those are just kind of hard to do in a 5-minute segment. So I tried to think of something I can do for that, and I'm not sure how I'll go about that yet. But the number one vote getter for sure was something more to do with vehicles and cars. And so the good news is I have a couple vehicles, so we have some things we can look at. The bad news is I don't know a whole lot about cars, but I know enough that I can probably do a few 5-minute segments here. And so we will go over that for the rest of the week. So we will have an assignment today and tomorrow, and then Thursday and Friday, and then that'll be it for us. And so next week, I know some of you will be starting to check back in. I'm sure Mrs. P's notified you, I hope, about some of that, when your check-in day is and that sort of stuff. And so you'll have through next week to get all your assignments finished, but this week will be the last of the new content. So we essentially have 4 assignments left. And so keep pushing through. We're almost there, okay? First thing we'll talk about with a vehicle is in an engine. Some of you will remember if you've had small engines with me before. If you haven't yet, this will be kind of new probably. An engine needs to have gas and air, so it needs air and fuel, gas or fuel. It needs to have a spark, something that creates a fire, and it needs to have compression. And compression is probably the hardest part to understand unless again, if you've had a class with me. But a piston that travels up and down, that creates our power. When it comes back up, it creates compression and makes it easier to burn the gas so that the piston can drive back down, okay? So knowing that it needs those 4 things, we need air, we need fuel, we need a spark, so a spark plug, and we need compression. Then we were able to diagnose things a lot better, okay? And so one of the questions was specifically, what's it mean, or what do you do? How do you move forward when you have a check engine light come on? And so that's what we'll talk about today. So here's Mrs. Wright's Suburban, and you can see she has a check engine light on. And so what do you do when that happens? So if you do see that dreaded check engine light, the first thing I like to do is I go to O'Reilly's in Fremont. Now I'm sure any auto parts store does it. That's just the one that I go to. No reason, that's just where I go. They have a little machine. They'll bring it out to your vehicle, and there's a little plug-in underneath the steering wheel, way underneath by the foot pedals, and they'll plug their machine in there, and then their machine will give them codes. So we call those check engine light codes. And so it'll give them a list of things that are wrong with it. Now the thing with an engine, it's not going to tell you, specifically exactly what's wrong, because your engine has to know what's wrong, and it's not a human, it's just a computer. So what they put in the engines, they put a lot of sensors all over the place. And so Mrs. Wright's check engine light, actually, that's on, is an O2 sensor after the muffler on the exhaust. So what that sensor is doing is it's checking the air that's leaving the engine, going through the exhaust, and leaving out the tailpipe, and at the end, it's checking for its emissions. So what it's saying is that the amount of emissions going into the muffler, there's a sensor there, and then the emissions coming out, they should be different, and they're not different enough. And so that could be a whole lot of things, but at least when I get that code, then I can start thinking about maybe it's just the sensor that's bad, maybe it's the muffler that's bad, maybe the engine is putting too much gas into the engine so that when it burns, some of the gas is left, and so that sensor's picking it up on the way out. So that code doesn't tell me exactly what it is, but it gives me a good place to start, okay? It could also, some other common codes, it might say, like my old truck used to do this, it'd say a misfire on 6. So that means that the 6th cylinder, the spark wasn't firing, okay? So again, that could be multiple things. Is the spark plug bad? Is the wire that leads to the electricity to the spark plug, is that bad? We could just start narrowing down some things. So your check engine light's pretty important to get it checked out, and you can do that at any auto parts store. and then you can go from there to begin to diagnose things. And so hopefully that kind of makes sense. As we move through the rest of the week, we'll talk more specifically about how to check the fluids in the vehicle, probably how to change some oil, maybe how to change a tire, do some different things like that, and hopefully we can work through there, okay? For your assignment for today, let's do this. If you had a check engine light, which auto parts store would you go to? Do you have a favorite, or does it matter? Just let me know, and that'll be your assignment for today. Okay, have a great day, and hopefully you learned something new here.
I say it's a good time.